The wind howled like a wounded beast outside Ethan's small wooden home. Snow fell in heavy sheets, covering the alien valley in white. It was the kind of night when no living thing should be outside, but Ethan heard its soft scratching at his front door. At first, he thought it was just the storm playing tricks. Then he heard it again, this time, a weak, desperate knock. Ethan hesitated, his hand hovering over the latch. No one ever came here, not in weather like this. He lived far from the colony, away from both humans and aliens. Opening the door to strangers in a storm could mean trouble. But something in that faint sound pulled at him. He took a deep breath and unlatched the door. A blast of freezing wind hit him in the face. And there she was, an alien woman, half collapsed against the frame. Her skin was pale with frost, her eyes half closed, her lips trembling. Her clothes were thin, torn, and soaked with melting snow. Before Ethan could speak, she whispered something strange, her voice breaking. "I can cook. Bear your children. Just don't throw me out." Then her knees gave way, and she crumpled into his arms. Ethan's heart raced. He had never seen her before. She wasn't human. Her features were delicate but alien. Her ears slightly pointed, her eyes large and glimmering, faintly, even in the dark. Without thinking, he dragged her inside and kicked the door shut. He laid her on the old couch near the fire. Her body was cold, too cold. He wrapped her in blankets and lit another log. For a moment, he just stared at her. Why would she say something like that? Why was she out here alone in the storm? She looked young, but there was a weariness in her face. When he touched her hand, it twitched, but she didn't wake. Ethan fetched hot water, soaking a cloth and pressing it gently to her skin, slowly. Her breathing steadied. An hour later, her eyes fluttered open. She looked around wildly, then at him. Her voice was still weak, but her fear was stronger than the cold. "Please," she whispered again. "Don't send me back." Ethan frowned. "Back? Where?" She shook her head, pulling the blanket tighter outside. The wind banged against the shutters like an angry fist. Ethan didn't press her with questions yet. Instead, he brought her a mug of hot broth. Her hands shook as she took it, sipping. Slowly, he could see she was hungry, but careful, like someone used to eating in fear. When she finally looked up, there were tears in her eyes. "They'll come for me," she said quietly. "If they know I'm here, they'll kill you too." A shiver that had nothing to do with the cold ran down Ethan's spine. Who were they? And why would they kill him for helping her? He leaned closer, his voice low. "Who's after you?" She didn't answer, just stared into the fire. But her hands clutched the blanket so tightly her knuckles turned white. Ethan's mind spun with questions. Was she a fugitive? A runaway slave? Had she escaped from the alien city beyond the hills? He didn't know, but he knew one thing. Throwing her out there would be murder. And murder was something he would never do. Hours passed, outside. The snow piled higher, sealing them in. Inside, the fire burned low, but the warmth between them began to grow. Every so often, Ethan would glance toward the window. A strange unease settled in his chest. It felt like eyes were watching from the darkness beyond the glass as midnight approached. He heard it faint crunching in the snow. Not the sound of wind or falling ice, but footsteps, heavy ones. Slow and deliberate, Ethan froze, his hand instinctively going to the hunting rifle near the wall. The alien woman's eyes widened, and she whispered in terror, "They've found me." Ethan moved to the window, through the blowing snow. He saw 3 shadowy figures standing near the edge of his property. They weren't moving toward the house. Yet, just waiting, watching. His grip on the rifle tightened. Whatever this woman had run from had now reached his doorstep. The storm raged on, but inside, Ethan knew the real danger had only just arrived. The 3 shadowy figures outside didn't move closer. They just stood there, half hidden by the snow and darkness. Ethan's breath came out in slow, tense clouds. He stepped away from the window and turned to the alien woman. Her eyes were wide, her body shaking, not from cold, but from fear. "They won't leave until they know," she whispered. "And if they do not find me here, they will search every home until they do." Ethan kept his voice calm. "Who are they?" She shook her head, as if speaking the answer might summon them inside. Instead, she pulled the blanket tighter and said, "You don't want to know. Human." Her voice cracked, her gaze dropping to the floor. "But please, I will work for you, clean for you, cook for you," she whispered, almost desperately. "I will bear your children if you wish. Just let me stay. Just don't send me back out there." Ethan froze at her words. It wasn't the kind of offer anyone expected. To hear from a stranger, especially not one who had almost frozen to death on his doorstep. "I'm not looking for a servant," he said, "and I'm not looking for a wife." Her eyes flickered up at him, full of hurt but also hope. "Then let me stay, because I'm useful," she said quickly. "I can fix things. I can repair machines. I can tend to wounds, anything. Just don't make me go back." He studied her for a long moment. There was no arrogance in her tone, no deception, only raw survival, whatever she had run from. It had stripped her of pride. She was bargaining with the only things she thought had value to a stranger. But Ethan's gut told him there was more. "You're not telling me the full story," he said quietly. "What's really chasing you?" Her lips trembled. She looked toward the fire as though drawing strength from its warmth. "Finally," she said, "I was promised to a man. A leader in my people's city." Her voice tightened. "I refused him. So they marked me as a traitor." She swallowed hard. "He doesn't want a wife. He wants an object, a thing to display. And when I spoke against him, he ordered me to be left in the storm." Ethan's hands curled into fists at his sides. He had heard of such cruelty among some alien factions, where life was cheap and power was absolute. And those men out there? He asked. "They are his hunters," she replied. "Once they find me, I will not see another sunrise." Silence filled the room, broken only by the wind outside. Ethan felt the weight of her words pressing on him. Taking her in meant trouble, serious trouble, but letting her go meant death for her. He had already made his choice when he pulled her inside earlier. Now he would have to live with it. "You can stay," he said finally, "but only if you tell me the truth from now on." Her eyes filled with tears, and she nodded quickly. "I swear it," she whispered. "I will do whatever you ask." The figures outside began to move away, disappearing into the storm. Ethan didn't relax. He knew this wasn't over. They would be back, and next time, they wouldn't just knock. He started locking the windows and bolting the door. Lyra watched him, her hands fidgeting with the blanket. "You're risking your life for me," she said softly. "Why?" Ethan paused, his hand on the last latch. "Because no one deserves to die out there." He replied. She studied him for a long moment, as though trying to understand a human's way of thinking. Finally, she said, "In my world, kindness like this is rare and dangerous." They ate in silence after that, the storm still roaring outside, but Ethan's mind kept returning to what she had said. He had lived alone for years, keeping away from alien politics and human troubles alike. Yet here he was, sheltering a fugitive alien woman hunted by a powerful leader. He didn't know why. But part of him already knew this night had changed his life forever. As he sat by the fire, he caught her watching the window again. Her eyes weren't just afraid, they were calculating. Not against him, but against whatever might come through that door next. It was then Ethan realized she wasn't just running. She was preparing for something far more dangerous than the storm outside. Morning came slowly on the frozen alien world. The storm had eased, but the land outside was still covered in deep snow. Ethan stood by the window, scanning the white horizon. The 3 shadowy figures from last night were gone, but their footprints remained a reminder that they had been here. He turned and saw Lyra sitting by the fire, holding the mug of broth he had given her. She looked better than the night before. Her skin had regained some color, and the trembling had lessened, but her eyes were still sharp. Watching every sound, every movement, Ethan knew he needed answers now. If he was going to protect her, he had to know the truth. "All right," he said firmly. "You said you'd tell me everything." Lyra's fingers tightened around the mug. Her gaze dropped to the floor, and for a moment, Ethan thought she wouldn't speak. Then she let out a slow breath. "I was born in the city of Thalver," she began. "A place where strength means power, and power means you can take whatever you want." Her voice was calm at first, but as she spoke, anger began to burn beneath her words. "My family wasn't wealthy, but we had honor, and we refused to bow to corrupt leaders." Ethan listened without interrupting. "One of those leaders," she continued, "was Varek the High Enforcer." She looked up at Ethan, her eyes narrowing. "He controls the trade routes, the soldiers, the judges, everything." Her voice grew colder, and he decided that I would be his, not for love, but as a prize. Ethan frowned. "And when you refused?" Her lips twisted into a bitter smile. "He laughed," she said, "and then he declared me a rebel, unfit to live among my own people." Her voice trembled for a moment. "They dragged me from my home, stripped me of my rights, and left me on the edge of the wastelands, knowing the cold would finish me." She took a sip from her mug, her eyes distant, "But I didn't freeze not that night." Ethan's jaw tightened. "How did you survive?" Lyra hesitated, then reached into the folds of the blanket. She pulled out a small metallic box, the same one Ethan had seen her clutching when she thought he wasn't looking. "This," she said simply, "is why I'm still alive, Ethan." Stepped closer, curiosity and caution mixing in his mind. "What's in it?" Lyra's eyes flickered toward the window before answering. "Proof," she said. "Records of Varek's crime smuggling, executions, secret deals with human mercenaries." Her voice lowered to a whisper. "If this falls into the right hands, Varek will lose everything." Ethan exhaled slowly. Now it made sense. The hunters weren't just after her because she refused Varek. They were after her because she held the power to destroy him. "And you think they know you have it?" he asked. She nodded, her expression grim. "They will not stop until they take it. And kill me to keep it silent." Silence filled the room. Ethan stared at the small box, feeling the weight of it without even touching it. He had lived for years avoiding politics, avoiding dangerous fights. But now he was standing in the middle of one. "You could have gone to the human colony," he said finally. "Ask them for help." Her laugh was sharp and humorless. "Humans here take bribes from Varek too," she said. "There's no safe place but the shadows." Ethan sat down across from her. "If you stay here, they'll come again," he warned. Her eyes met his, steady and unflinching. "Then we will be ready," she said. "I've been running long enough." Her voice softened then, almost pleading. "But I can't do this alone." "Ethan," he studied her face. She was tired, wounded, hunted, yet there was something in her gaze that spoke of iron will. "You're asking me to fight a man who controls half this planet," he said. She didn't flinch. "I'm asking you to help me survive long enough to end him," she replied. Outside, a gust of wind shook the shutters. For a moment, Ethan thought it was just the storm's return, until he saw a faint movement at the tree line. 2 figures this time, watching. From a distance, not approaching, not leaving, just waiting. Ethan's grip tightened on the edge of the table. He had the feeling the real battle was just beginning. And if Lyra was telling the truth, the storm outside was nothing compared to the one coming for them both. The day passed in an easy silence. Lyra stayed close to the fire, her eyes always drifting toward the windows. Ethan busied himself checking supplies, making sure the doors and shutters were secure. He had a bad feeling, the kind that gnawed at the back of the mind. The figures they had seen that morning had not returned, not visibly, but Ethan knew better than to think they were gone. By evening, the snow had stopped falling. The world outside lay quiet. Blanketed in white, too quiet, Ethan thought. Even the usual wind through the trees seemed hushed. That kind of silence didn't mean peace, it meant something was waiting. Lyra noticed it too. "They'll come tonight," she said softly. Her voice steady, but her hands gripping the blanket. Ethan didn't ask how she knew. He just trusted. That she did, he loaded his hunting rifle and placed it near the door. Then he double-checked the hidden compartment under the floorboards. If they forced their way in, the small metallic box would be the first thing he'd protect. The knock came just after nightfall, a deep, heavy thud against the wood. Ethan exchanged a glance with Lyra. Her face had gone pale. He stepped to the door, but didn't open it. "Who is it?" he called, his voice firm. A voice answered, rough and cold. "We're looking for a runaway." Ethan didn't respond right away. The voice continued. "She's dangerous. She's a thief, and she's on your land." Ethan kept his tone even. "Haven't seen anyone." There was a pause, then a slow, mocking laugh from the other side. "We'll see about that." The next moment the door shook under a hard shove. Ethan braced it with his shoulder. "You're not welcome here," he said sharply. "We're not asking for welcome," the voice growled. "We're taking what's ours." Lyra was already moving. She darted toward the back of the house, her bare feet silent on the floorboards. Ethan caught her arm. "Basement," he said quickly. And she nodded. She slipped down into the small storage space below, pulling the hatch closed above her. The knocking turned into pounding. Then came the sound of something heavy striking the door, an axe. Ethan backed away, rifle in hand. The wood began to splinter. Snow blowing in through the cracks, his heart hammered. But his grip on the weapon stayed steady. When the door finally burst open, two tall alien figures stepped inside. Their armor was dark and heavy, their faces hidden behind masks. One of them scanned the room, while the other stepped toward Ethan. "You've got one chance," the alien said. "Give her to us, and you walk away alive." Ethan didn't move. "Not happening," he replied, his voice calm but iron-hard. The alien tilted his head slightly, as if almost amused. Then he lunged. Ethan fired. The blast echoed through the cabin. The alien staggered back, armor scorched, but not down. The second one moved in. Swinging a metal staff, Ethan ducked, feeling the wind of the strike pass inches from his head. The fight was close and brutal. Ethan used every bit of space to his advantage, shoving one attacker into the table, smashing a chair to block another swing. But they were stronger, faster. It was only a matter of time before they overpowered him. Then, from beneath the floorboards, there was a sharp sound, metal clicking. One of the aliens froze, turning toward the noise. In that split second, Ethan swung the butt of his rifle into the side of the alien's head. The mask cracked, and the figure stumbled, dazed. Ethan didn't waste the moment. He shoved them both back toward the open door, then kicked it shut and slid the heavy bar into place. Breathing hard, he pulled the hatch open. Lyra climbed out, holding a small energy pistol in her hand. Her eyes were fierce, no trace of fear in them now. "I thought you didn't have a weapon," Ethan said. "I thought you didn't need to know," she replied simply. Outside, voices shouted in the snow. They weren't gone, just regrouping. Ethan knew they would come again, and next time, they wouldn't leave without blood. But Lyra stood beside him, her grip on the pistol firm. "They won't stop," she said. "So we can't just hide anymore." Ethan met her gaze. The truth was clear. This wasn't just about sheltering her anymore. It was about choosing a side, and whether he liked it or not, his choice had already been made. The night after the attack was long and restless. Ethan sat by the window with his rifle across his lap. The storm had returned, covering the earlier footprints outside, but he knew the snow wasn't going to erase the danger somewhere out there. The hunters were waiting for another chance. Lyra didn't sleep much either. She sat close to the fire, wrapped in a blanket, eyes lost in thought. Every now and then she glanced at Ethan, as if wanting to say something but stopping herself. Ethan noticed, but he didn't press. He knew trust wasn't something you could demand, it had to grow slowly. By morning, the air inside felt warmer. The scent of food drifted from the small kitchen space. Ethan turned to see Lyra cooking, her movements careful but precise. She had found what little supplies he had: dried meat, root vegetables, a bit of grain, and somehow turned them into a hot stew. He realized he couldn't remember the last time someone else had cooked for him. "You didn't have to," he said quietly. "I wanted to," she replied, serving the stew into 2 bowls. She hesitated before handing him his. "You saved my life twice. This is all I can give back right now." Ethan took it, nodding in thanks. They ate in silence. But it wasn't the tense silence from before. It felt different now. Calmer. After the meal, Ethan worked on repairing the door that had been broken. During the attack, Lyra joined him, holding the boards steady while he hammered them in place. "You've done this before?" he noticed. She smiled faintly. "I've built and fixed more things than I can count. My father taught me before they took him." Her voice dipped at the last part. But she kept working. Ethan didn't ask questions. He let her share at her own pace. The hours passed with small conversations. Ethan told her about growing up in the human colony, about leaving it to live out here where it was quiet. Lyra listened, then shared small details of her own childhood running through the market streets, helping her mother make clothes, but she skipped over the years between then and now. As if those memories were locked away. Still, Ethan could see her walls slowly lowering. That evening, while Ethan was checking his traps outside, Lyra disappeared into the storage room. When he returned, she was coming out with something small and metal in her hands, the box. "You're still keeping it here," he said. She nodded. "I moved it just in case." Ethan studied her for a moment. "You don't trust me with it yet?" She met his eyes, her expression unreadable. "I trust you more than anyone else I've met," she said softly. "But this box isn't just mine, it's a weapon, and once you open it, you can't go back." Her words stuck with him. He wanted to ask what exactly was inside, but he didn't. Some part of him knew that when the time came, he would find out. For now, it was enough that she was here, that she was alive. That night, as the fire burned low, Lyra surprised him. "I used to think all humans were selfish," she admitted. "My people told stories about humans who would sell anyone for a handful of credits." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "And now?" She smiled faintly. "Now I know at least one human who isn't." Before Ethan could respond, the wind outside carried a faint sound, too faint for most ears. But Lyra heard it instantly, her head snapping toward the door. "They're moving." "Closer again," she said in a low voice. Ethan stood, grabbing his rifle, through the window. He could see faint shadows shifting at the edge of the trees. They weren't attacking, just watching, testing. It was a reminder that the fragile peace inside the cabin was only temporary. Lyra stepped closer to him, her voice steady. "When they come again, I won't hide," she said. "I'm done running." Ethan looked at her and saw not just a refugee, but someone willing to fight, and for the first time since she arrived. He realized he wasn't protecting her out of pity. He was standing beside her because he believed she was worth it. The next morning was cold but clear. The storm had passed, leaving the world outside sparkling under a sheet of white. Ethan woke early, moving quietly so he wouldn't disturb Lyra. But when he stepped into the main room, she was already awake. Sitting at the table with the metallic box in front of her, her fingers rested on it like it was something alive. Something dangerous. You're ready to tell me, Ethan said, not as a question, but as a statement. Lyra's eyes met his, and for a long moment, she didn't speak. Finally, she nodded. If you're going to keep protecting me, you should know what you're risking your life for. She slid the box across the table toward him. The metal was cold against his skin, heavier than it looked. How do I open it? He asked. She pressed her palm against a small panel on the side, and a faint blue light scanned her hand with a soft click. The top lifted open, revealing a stack of thin crystal data chips and a small black device. Ethan frowned. This is it, just data. Lyra's lips curved into a humorless smile. Not just data evidence. She picked up one of the chips and held it to the light. These hold recordings, signed documents, and encrypted messages from Varric himself. She explained, smuggling rare resources, selling prisoners to off-world traders, paying assassins to silence his enemies. Her eyes hardened, including the order to kill my father. Ethan leaned back, letting the weight of her words sink in. If this was true, and from her tone, he believed it, then the box was worth more than gold, and dangerous enough to get them both killed. Why not give this to the authorities? He asked, because most of them work for him. She replied sharply. There's only one place I can take this, an independent tribunal in the Southern Territories. He thought about the long journey through the frozen wilderness, the dangers of crossing alien-controlled lands, and the hunters that would surely follow them every step of the way. You'd never make it alone, he said. That's why I need you. She replied simply. Ethan sighed, rubbing a hand across his face. He had spent years avoiding trouble, building a life where no one could pull him into their fights. But now, trouble was sitting at his table, looking him in the eye, and he knew there was no way he could turn away. You're asking me to walk straight into the fire, he said. I'm asking you to help me put it out, she countered. Before he could answer, a sudden thud hit the side of the cabin. Both of them froze. Ethan grabbed his rifle while Lyra snatched up the box and shut it tight. Another thud, followed by the crunch of boots on snow. Through the window, Ethan caught sight of movement, 3 figures this time, moving in a slow circle around the house. There early, Lyra muttered, her voice tense. Ethan motioned for her to get to the back room. Instead, she stayed by his side, her hand resting on the small energy pistol she'd kept hidden before. They'll expect us to be scared, she said. But we have to show them we're not prey. The pounding on the door began, louder this time. Open up. A voice barked. Ethan didn't answer. Instead, he slid the rifle strap over his shoulder and whispered, We hold them off. Then we leave tonight, box and all. Lyra's eyes flickered with determination. Agreed. The door rattled again. But they didn't break it down this time. Instead, there was silence followed by the sound of footsteps retreating. Ethan exchanged a look with Lyra. That's not good, he muttered. They're not leaving, she said grimly. They're setting a trap. For the rest of the day, they prepared. Ethan packed food, blankets, extra ammunition. Lyra secured the box inside a small pouch she could wear under her clothes. By nightfall, the cabin was dark, the fire out. Only the moonlight through the window lit the room. Ethan glanced at her one last time. You still sure about this? She met his gaze without hesitation. I've been sure since the day I stole this box, she said. Then she opened the door to the frozen night, and together they stepped into the snow, knowing the hunters would be close behind. The night air bit into their skin as Ethan and Lyra moved through the snow. Their breaths came in clouds, vanishing into the darkness. They stayed close to the tree line, avoiding the open fields where moonlight would make them easy targets. The world around them was silent, too silent. Ethan knew it meant the hunters were near. They had traveled for less than an hour when the first sound reached them: crunching footsteps. Slow, steady, deliberate, Ethan raised his hand, signaling Lyra to stop. Through the trees, dark shapes moved, closing in from both sides. "They've surrounded us," Lyra whispered, her hand tightening on the pistol. Ethan's mind raced. They couldn't outrun them in the snow, not carrying supplies and the box. Fighting was the only option. He scanned the terrain, spotting a narrow ravine ahead. "If we hold them there, they can't come at us all at once," he said. Lyra nodded, trusting him without question. They reached the ravine just as the hunters appeared. 4 of them this time, armored and armed. One stepped forward, his voice carrying through the cold air. "You've made this harder than it had to be." Human, Ethan kept his rifle steady. "You're not taking her." The hunter's helmet tilted. "We're not here for her alone. We're here for the box." Lyra's breath caught. Ethan didn't look at her, his eyes fixed on the enemy. "Then you already know you're not leaving with it," he said. The hunter raised his weapon, and the fight began. The ravine echoed with the crack of Ethan's rifle. One hunter fell back, armor sparking where the bullets struck. Lyra moved fast, firing her pistol with deadly precision. They fought side by side, the cold air filled with bursts of light and the hiss of energy shots. Ethan ducked behind a rock as a beam scorched the ground where he'd been standing. 2 hunters pushed forward, forcing them back. Ethan swung the rifle like a club. Knocking one off balance, Lyra shot the other in the leg, sending him crashing into the snow, but the leader was still standing. He advanced slowly, as if sure of his victory. "You think you can protect her forever?" he taunted. Ethan's voice was steady. "Not forever, just long enough." With a sudden move, Lyra darted past Ethan, drawing the leader's attention. In that split second, Ethan fired. The shot hitting the leader's shoulder, the alien staggered, dropping his weapon. Lyra didn't hesitate. She kicked the weapon away and pressed her pistol to his chest. "Tell Varric," she said coldly, "that I'm coming for him." Then she fired, sending him tumbling into the snow. The remaining hunters, seeing their leader fall, retreated into the shadows. Their dark shapes vanished among the trees. Ethan lowered his rifle, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. Lyra stood still for a moment, then turned to him. "It's over," she said, though her voice carried no relief. "Not over," Ethan replied, "just the first step." They searched the fallen for supplies, taking what they could. The cold was closing in again, but the path ahead was clear. The southern territories were still far, but they had survived the first real test. Ethan glanced at Lyra as they began walking again. There was a strength in her stride now, something unshaken. She wasn't just a refugee anymore, she was a fighter. Hours later, when the horizon began to glow with the first light of dawn, they stopped to rest. Ethan built a small fire while Lyra sat beside him, the metallic box safe in her lap. "Back at your door," she said quietly. "I thought you'd throw me out." Ethan smiled faintly. "I thought about it," he admitted. "But then I realized some people you find in life because you're supposed to." Lyra's eyes softened. "Whatever happens next," she said, "I'm glad it's you walking beside me." The firelight danced across their faces. Beyond them, the snowy wilderness stretched endlessly. Danger still waited ahead, but so did hope, and together they stepped forward into it.